Everyone used to call my grandmother strange. Not crazy. Just strange. She lived alone in the old wooden house at the edge of town, surrounded by wind chimes and faded photographs no one else in the family remembered. As kids, we laughed at the way she talked about dreams like they were messages. But the night before my trip with my wife, she said something that made my stomach twist. I had stopped by to say goodbye. My wife, Claire, was waiting in the car outside. We were leaving at dawn for a week-long getaway in the mountains. Her idea, a chance to start fresh. Grandma held my hand longer than usual when I stood up to leave. Her fingers were cold. "Don't go with her," she whispered. I laughed at first. "Grandma, it's just a trip." She shook her head slowly, eyes locked on mine. "You won't come back." The words hung in the room like smoke. I stepped back, uneasy now. "Then I shouldn't go?" For a moment she said nothing. Then her voice dropped to a quiet murmur. "Before you cancel, go." I frowned. "What?" She leaned closer, her breath barely a whisper against my ear. "But do one thing." Then she told me what it was. And suddenly the trip didn't feel like a vacation anymore. "Turn on the recorder on your phone," my grandmother whispered. "From the moment you leave the house until the moment you come back." I stared at her. "That's it." She nodded slowly. "Do not turn it off. Not even once." Outside, Claire honked the car horn impatiently. "Daniel," she called. "We're going to be late." Grandma squeezed my wrist one last time. Her eyes looked older than I'd ever seen them. "Promise me." "I promise," I said, though I had no idea why. The next morning, just before stepping out the door, I opened the voice recorder on my phone. Record. I slipped the phone into my jacket pocket and left it running. Claire was already in the driver's seat, sunglasses on, smiling like nothing in the world could be wrong. "Ready for our fresh start?" she asked. I nodded and got in. The drive to the mountains took 4 hours. At first everything felt normal. Music played softly through the speakers while pine forests slid past the windows. But about halfway through the trip, Claire's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then quickly turned it face down. "Work," she said casually. But a minute later, when she thought I wasn't looking, she picked it up again and whispered one quiet sentence. "Don't worry. He has no idea." I kept staring out the window like I hadn't heard anything. But inside something shifted. "He has no idea." The words replayed in my head over and over while the road curved deeper into the mountains. I said nothing. Claire drove the rest of the way humming quietly, her fingers tapping the steering wheel like she was counting down to something. By late afternoon we reached the lodge she had booked. It sat alone on a hill surrounded by thick forest, the nearest town nearly 20 miles away. "Isn't it perfect?" Claire said as we stepped out of the car. The place looked beautiful. Too beautiful. Quiet. Empty. Isolated. Inside, the lodge owner handed us the key and pointed toward a long wooden hallway. "Room 12, he said. Claire grabbed my arm excitedly and pulled me toward the room. But as we walked past the front desk, I noticed something strange. The owner was watching us. Not casually. Carefully. Like he wanted to say something but didn't dare. Inside the room, Claire opened a bottle of wine she had brought from home. "Tonight," she said, pouring 2 glasses, "we celebrate." But when she turned toward the window for a moment, her phone lit up again on the table. One message. 3 words. "Midnight. Everything ready." I picked up my glass and forced a smile. "Celebrating what?" I asked. Claire raised her glass toward mine. "Our new beginning." The wine tasted bitter. We talked about nothing for a while. Work, the drive, the cold mountain air outside the window. Claire seemed relaxed. Too relaxed. Like someone who already knew how the night would end. Around 11 she stretched and yawned. "Long day," she said. "I'm going to shower." The bathroom door closed behind her. The moment the water started running, I stood up and walked quietly to the small table where her phone lay charging. My heart was pounding. I told myself not to look. Then I looked. The phone wasn't locked. The message thread was still open. Unknown number. The last message read, "Midnight. Everything ready." Above it were older messages. My chest tightened as I read. "Is the cabin isolated?" "Yes." "No neighbors." "Good." Then the last one Claire had sent just before we arrived. "He thinks this is a romantic trip." The shower stopped. I quickly placed the phone back exactly where it had been. A few seconds later Claire walked out smiling. And outside the cabin door, someone knocked. The knock was slow. 3 heavy taps against the wooden door. Claire froze for half a second. Just a half. But I saw it. Then she forced a relaxed smile and walked toward the door. "I'll get it," she said. I stayed seated, pretending to scroll through my phone while the recorder still ran silently in my pocket. The door opened. A tall man stood outside. Dark jacket. Thick beard. Cold eyes. Claire looked surprised. Too surprised. "Oh," she said lightly. "Can I help you?" The man glanced at me behind her. Then back at Claire. "Wrong cabin," he muttered before turning away. Claire closed the door quickly. For a moment she stood there, breathing slowly. "You know him?" I asked. She laughed. "Of course not. Probably drunk." But the moment she turned her back, her phone vibrated again on the table. She grabbed it too quickly. Her fingers moved fast across the screen. Then she slipped the phone into her pocket. "Midnight hike," she said suddenly, smiling again. "What?" "There's a trail behind the lodge. The owner said the view at night is incredible." Midnight. My grandmother's warning echoed in my mind. "You won't come back." Claire grabbed my hand. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's go." The trail behind the lodge disappeared quickly into thick forest. Moonlight filtered through the trees in thin silver strips, barely lighting the narrow path ahead of us. Claire walked slightly in front of me, holding a small flashlight. "Not far now," she said. Her voice sounded calm. Too calm. My phone recorder was still running in my jacket pocket. Every step, every word, every breath. We walked for nearly 10 minutes before the trail opened into a small clearing overlooking the dark valley below. The wind was stronger up there. Claire stopped near the edge. "Beautiful, right?" she said quietly. I stepped beside her and looked down into the darkness. No lights. No roads. Just endless forest. Then I heard something behind us. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. The same tall man from the cabin stepped out of the shadows. Now he wasn't pretending to be lost. Claire didn't look surprised this time. She simply crossed her arms. The man walked closer. "You ready?" he asked her. Claire nodded once. My chest went cold. "Daniel," she said calmly, "I'm sorry you had to find out like this." The man grabbed my shoulder. And Claire spoke the words that made everything clear. "He has insurance. A lot of it." The man tightened his grip on my shoulder. "Make it quick," Claire said coldly. "It'll look like an accident." For a moment neither of them noticed that I wasn't fighting. I simply stood there, breathing slowly. "Before you do anything," I said quietly, "you should probably listen to something." Claire frowned. "What are you talking about?" I pulled my phone from my jacket pocket and held it up. The red recording light was still glowing. "Remember this morning?" I said. "When you told someone I had no idea?" The man's grip loosened slightly. Claire's eyes narrowed. "You think that changes anything?" "No," I said calmly. "But the 3 people waiting at the lodge might." Both of them froze. "The lodge owner," I continued, "and the 2 police officers sitting in his office right now." Claire's face drained of color. "The entire drive here has been recorded," I added. "Every message. Every plan. Every word you just said." The man stepped back instinctively. Claire stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. "You planned this?" she whispered. I shook my head slowly. "No." Then I remembered my grandmother's voice. "Do one thing." And thanks to her, I was ready. For a moment no one moved. The wind swept across the clearing, rustling the trees around us. Claire stared at the phone in my hand like it had suddenly become a weapon. "You're lying," she said quietly. But her voice didn't carry the confidence it once had. Behind us, the distant sound of an engine broke the silence. Headlights cut through the forest trail below. The man beside me turned toward the sound. 2 vehicles were climbing the path. The lodge owner stepped out of the first truck. Behind him came 2 uniformed officers. Claire's face collapsed. "Daniel?" she whispered, reaching toward me. I stepped back. "No," I said. The officers walked past me and straight toward her and the man. Within seconds metal cuffs clicked shut. Claire looked at me one last time while they led her away. "How did you know?" she asked weakly. I watched the police car door close. Then I thought about my grandmother standing in that quiet house, holding my hand. Turn on the recorder. That one small instruction had saved my life. And as the police lights disappeared down the mountain road, I realized something else. Sometimes the people everyone calls strange are the only ones who truly see the truth.